Well, let's move into the final topic here on the Fast Break podcast. We're talking about Russell Westbrook. Zach Lowe of ESPN dropped a little bit of a note that was pretty interesting. He talked about there's an increasing number of people around the league who think the Thunder should look at trading Westbrook. To be clear, not a report, not Thunder sources think they should do this, just in spitballing ideas with teams around the league. There's a number of people who have heard this, just like it's time for something here to change. So we're not saying the Thunder should come out and trade him. This is just us talking, spitballing the idea here on the Fast Break podcast of Russell Westbrook possibly moving team, if it's the best for the Thunder, how it will happen, and some teams that could possibly take on Russell Westbrook and need a player like Russell Westbrook. So don't go in it saying it's not going to happen. We're not saying it's going to happen.
We're not saying it's going to happen, but should it happen? Maybe one of us thinks so.
And that's the whole point of this topic, just to have fun. So let us also know your comments down below. Do you think the Thunder should look into trading Russell Westbrook? Well, I'll ask it to you guys. Ricky, do you think the Thunder should, or at least should, look into trading Russell Westbrook?
Yes, I think if they haven't already, that's a huge problem to me. I feel like the main reason why is my whole problem with the Thunder is I feel like all of their problems come down to Russell Westbrook. And it's, he's a great player. Yeah, the triple-double's amazing, but his game, and most importantly, his personality, I don't think fits with especially the Thunder, with him being the one. Because, if you want a guy that's just going to light up the stat sheet, that's fine. You might get to the playoffs. He's never going to be a guy that wins an NBA championship. You now have two players.
He's never going to win an NBA championship.
Never going to win an NBA championship.
Never lost.
As him being the number one. Now, if he late in his career journeymans it and goes on a team, then maybe he might get one. But he won't, if he stays with the Thunder with this contract, he'll never win a championship with the Thunder as the number one. Because I look at it now, two guys. James Harden was first. I know James Harden hasn't won a championship, but look at where he is right now. Kevin Durant leaves, and I know everyone, but he went to the best team ever. Yeah, but he still left, and look at how he is flourishing. I feel like the common denominator is maybe we do have a problem here with Russell Westbrook, and it's not his play, it's his personality.
Dave, before I ask you the question of should they look into it or should they, I want to ask the question about just Russ in general, because Ricky brings up the fact that James Harden leaves and the fact that Kevin Durant leaves. James Harden didn't pick up his play in Houston until he had that great system around him. Yes, he was good when Dwight was around there, but when they picked it up, when they had D'Antoni and Harden firing over the past 2 years, that's when he turned into that next great player. Kevin Durant, being in that Warriors system, turned him into the monster we saw today. He was already a monster, but now at least defensively, offensively, he just seems more connected into this team. Do we give too much shit to Russell Westbrook, not only the media, but fans, just because he's never been in that system? Because I think most people know I'm not a fan of Billy Donovan, and I'm not a fan of Scott Brooks, because I don't think they're imaginative offensively. I don't think they're strong enough to be head coaches in the NBA. So looking at them, do you think it's something where Russ has just not been in the right system to flourish in his career?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head from my point of view as well. I think the problem when you have someone as talented as Russ, as outspoken as he is, and he's so easy to talk to from the media standpoint, that it's sometimes hard to control a player like that and get him to the point where, you want to do your own thing. I get that. I respect that. But what's best for the team needs to be this. And I feel like that hasn't happened on that team. I feel like he's been allowed to do his thing. And when it was him and Kevin Durant, it was you guys both do your own thing, and you guys will ISO it out, and we'll try to win games that way. You don't play with the system. You don't play smart basketball. They don't play team basketball. Look at that old team. It was Ibaka. It was KD, Harden, Westbrook, and I think Roberson was on that team. Maybe not, but it was still a couple years back when they challenged in the championship year.
I think Raymond Felton was on the team.
I don't know. Point being, you had talent. You had a full team. And what'd you do? You choked in the playoffs. You went down. You went ISO heavy, and you lost the series. And then as time went on, you watched it more and more. Harden, that was the worst decision a franchise could make, to be like, we're not going to go in the luxury tax to keep someone who's pretty good. We'll let him walk. And then KD, obviously the decision happened for him. I think a lot of it for me comes down to, like you said, the lack of strength from a coaching position matters the most. I think in a system where he can truly be, unleashed, not unleashed, the opposite of that, be reined in to play within a system, we will truly see this as an excellent team. I don't think that it can't do it. I think it's the fact that he has no reason to right now. Like, he has not been in a position these last 2 years where if there was a system around him and these guys to succeed, I don't think this would be a better team if magically, they were able to do that.
Real quick, two of the guys on that Thunder team that you were thinking about, it wasn't Robertson, it was Reggie Jackson and
Reggie.
D. Fish was on that Thunder team.
D. Fish.
Yeah,
was
that
Raymond
was
Felton on that team? Or was
Raymond
that a little
Felton?
later?
No.
Okay, that's
two of the other guys were Thabo and Nazem Muhammad.
Yeah.
Okay, I think
former Bulls.
Real quick though, I think that is the first Raymond Felton we've ever had on the Fast Break podcast. Shout out UNC 2005. But Dave, should they trade Russell Westbrook, or should they look into trading Russell Westbrook, or should it be a coaching decision move?
I think you have to move the coach. I think you start with the player. This is not that dissimilar to the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies were a situation where obviously their team was going in a different direction than their star player wanted, and he didn't agree with it, and obviously that caused conflict. Whatever happened, Fizdale gone, and we all thought that was the wrong move. I think this is a situation where Russell Westbrook is far more in his prime than Gasol is. He is able to contribute at a much higher level, and his impact on the game is much greater. He's someone that you can absolutely build around, but you have to build around him. You can't keep trying to take these shortcuts and making trades that sacrifice 2-for-1 trades to get Carmelo and 2-for-1 trade to get Paul George. And you keep moving around these pieces and cutting your own legs out from under you. You can't build a team like that because you added in 2 All-Stars, yes, but one could care less that he's playing basketball. The other one seemed halfway lost out there and disappeared at times. So I think a lot of it comes down to coaching. If you can't get the most out of your players, then how do you expect to win games? So that's your biggest problem right now.
Well, and it comes down to, you kind of hit on it a little bit, was when you were talking about like with Russ and the media, and you go, well, okay, how do you you mentioned where it's like, how do you tell a player like that what to do?
Yep.
And the first thing I think about, and I know this is like the extremist answer, is Pop hasn't had a problem. Like, Pop hasn't had a problem saying, this is how we do things. And I know the Spurs are a completely, totally over to this side because they do things not many teams do in this NBA. Like, look at Spoelstra and LeBron. They had head-to-head. They conflicted the first year, didn't win the finals. By the end of it, they were working together. And I feel like the big thing with Russell Westbrook is he's going to be a guy who's going to light up the stat sheet. Is he an amazing player? Yes. But I feel like Billy Donovan, any coach you bring in, is not going to be able to work with him because of what it's been like, where it's like, hey, I'm going to do my thing. Let me do my thing. Don't tell me what to do. Let me do my thing. And I think that's going to be the kryptonite to Russell Westbrook, because after KD left, now it's like, I have to do it all on my own. I have to do this. It's me or it's nothing. And that has hurt Russell Westbrook, because you mentioned, oh, he's in his prime. Yeah, he's 29. But by the time they build around him, how old is he going to be?
Still be like 31, which is
no,
still
but it's
fine.
like, how are you going to build? Like, how are free agents going to want to come to OKC? Are you going to have to do it in the draft?
Let's say
exactly.
Let's say this: how important is Paul George re-signing with Oklahoma City this offseason? I mean, not saying that it will happen, but if you're able to keep Paul George on this team, will that at least show the signs of being able to build around Russell Westbrook and Paul George? Because obviously that Carmelo deal is probably not going to come off unless you're able to throw a lot on, at least draft pick wise, to move him out.
Dave said it perfectly, though. They cut the legs from under them because now they're in a situation, them being the Thunder, where if Paul George doesn't come back, all right, we gave up Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis, who have contributed really well to a Pacers team this year, and we got Paul George for a year. Like, that to me is, you've got to bring him back.
They took a stab, but to be fair, that was also to get Russ to sign a contract at the same time. Like, them moving those two pieces guaranteed that Russ would re-sign that contract.
But if you feel like free agents aren't going to come to OKC,
you need to
is
keep
it really
them.
going to really going to do anything? You got to bring them back.
I think the biggest thing is that, again, the reason why it won't happen in my mind is just because of that of you signing Russ to that contract. It's not Russ's. At least I'm going to say it's not Russ's fault, but it's not Russ who needs to go, because Russ is what that fan base is rallying around. I think Oklahoma loves the Thunder, but I think having Russell Westbrook, having that guy that you consistently rely on, consistently can root for, having him be there is something that's going to be massive to at least Oklahoma City still thriving as a basketball market. Because if you start to rebuild, not saying that Oklahoma won't support it, because we really haven't seen them at least put in that situation, because they've been flourishing in Oklahoma City because of
the early days in OKC. Though, when you had early Kevin Durant, you had early Russell Westbrook, you saw the potential in those guys.
That's the thing. You saw the potential in those guys, and that's why, again, they didn't really drop out.
So you're saying the rock bottom hasn't hit, and you don't know how they'll react when it does?
Exactly.
Okay.
So because at least when the Oklahoma City came, fresh franchise, you're going to have people coming because of that. It's NBA basketball in our city. And then also, hey, we have Kevin Durant, who's a superstar, just waiting to burst and explode.
To be fair, like year 1 and year 2 of that in OKC, it was not packed.
But
like they had terrible.
But again, it took time for them to build up.
People say it's like a college atmosphere down there,
which is awesome.
Yeah,
which is absolutely awesome.
The thing that I think about is I'm thinking two things while you were talking, Sean, and the most important one was basically when you said, "Oh, you can't get rid of." Oh, I remember the first one. The first one was, this is the second time I'm going to mention them, was Get Up last week. They were talking about how, Russell Westbrook, I guess one of the stipulations for signing the contract was, hey, Russ, we're going to let you know before you sign this, we're keeping Billy Donovan. Like, we are not getting rid of him. And he signed it. And Jalen Rose had the best comment of, I don't care who the coach is. That much money, I'm fucking signing it. Like, you can put anyone as the coach. With that much money, the ink is hitting the paper. But the second point, and this is what you were bringing up, is the fact of going into a rebuild. And here's the interesting point I sit at. With Russell Westbrook, are you going to sit there and go, you know what? We gave him a big contract. We got to keep him because he's going to put fans in the seats and we're going to try to build around him. Or do you make it might be risky, it might be bold, but it can work out with how Presti has done. Look back, the guys he drafted are turning into pretty good NBA players. What are you going to be able to get for Russell Westbrook, and then you build around those players? I know it's a rebuild, but think about who's your GM and what you could get for Russell Westbrook.
Well, here's the question. Do they need to go into a rebuild? Because again, they still have the possibility of bringing back Paul George. They still have Russell Westbrook signed to an extension. I know this topic is about him possibly leaving, but let's just say that being traded, Russ is, trading, my bad. Again, they're going to have Russ under contract. They can still bring back Paul George, and Carmelo's still going to be there. So do they need a rebuild, or do they need a culture change, again, going back to Billy Donovan? What's more important for the Thunder next season?
I don't know about you, Dave, but the way I'm looking at it is we saw this trio work. I'm not convinced that this will ever develop into a championship trio, and because of that, you're at a crossroads right now. You either ride with Russell Westbrook, trying to build around him, failing to do so, never winning a title, or you bite the bullet, say we're going into a rebuild, getting what we can for Russell Westbrook right now while we can get a king's ransom and go full steer into it.
Dave, I want to ask a question to you about the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah.
Can Russell Westbrook and Paul George at least be dangerous, and is the biggest problem Carmelo Anthony? Like, do you think?
I wouldn't say the biggest problem is Carmelo Anthony. I would say the biggest problem is the lack of depth on that roster. I think Roberson's injury was massive.
So do you think if Roberson was there, it would have been a different story?
I think it would have been different. I don't know that they would have won in round one, but I think it would have been a different story, 100%, because he's probably the top 3 defender in his position, probably one of the top 3 in the NBA, to be honest. Like, he is a lockdown defender, and yes, he can't shoot for a lick, but he still has such upside in that defensive end that you don't need him necessarily. Yes, if you learn, should be amazing, but like, I think the injury is huge. I think the depth is just the biggest problem because, yes, Carmelo is unmotivated, but why is Carmelo unmotivated? You have to figure out the root of the cause. You can't just say, Melo doesn't want to play, he's bad, he refuses to come off the bench, he laughed at it. Like, you have to have a coach who actually garners respect from these players who are like, this is like my 9th, 10th year in the NBA. I don't care what you have to say. I've done mine. I've earned it. And I'm going to go out and take my shots.
Why can't Melo just be bad, though? Like, Melo, I think Melo is honestly just delusional when it comes to where he stands.
Yeah.
Carmelo isn't LeBron James. Even though you were drafting... Carmelo, compared to that draft class, is more comparable to Dwayne Wade than he is LeBron James. And I think Carmelo's mindset is that he's closer to LeBron James than he is to Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne won a ring without him, though.
And also, Dwayne Wade played better this year with 2 bum-ass knees. So that's one thing that I think Carmelo's just absolutely delusional where he is. He needs a mindset change. He needs to check himself. And even if he does that, I still don't know how valuable he can be to an NBA team. When people are talking about you coming off the bench and you laughing at it, you need to look in the mirror and see where you're at. I think that Carmelo Anthony is the biggest problem on this team, followed by Billy Donovan. And I think that Russell Westbrook and Paul George prove that they can play together. There were moments where those two absolutely clicked and were a nice duo on the court. And I think having a guy like Steven Adams is super nice. And Andre Roberson makes a nice starting four. I think the biggest thing, though, is just now looking back at that Carmelo trade and seeing what you lost in Enes Kanter, not really what he brought to you on the floor, but what he could have brought you at least outside of Melo. Because now you're stuck with $28 million going to a guy who's absolutely delusional on your bench, and it's just going to be hurting you because you're going to have to start this guy. And unless he changes his mindset, unless he looks in the mirror, this is going to be a team that fails next year.
Go find Hoodie Melo. Go find Olympic Melo. Because
I think those guys are dead and gone, though.
Here's the thing. We saw this for a stretch this season actually work out really well. You remember probably maybe like 2 months into the season, like this team had a run where they looked legit. And we're like, oh, shit. That team can stop teams in the playoffs. They have what it takes between those three guys to win a game, any game between those three guys. Like one of them can step up one night, one the next night. They don't have to do it themselves every night. I think where it all kind of fell apart was, not knowing how to mesh their roles and how to have them excel one at a time. Because like you said, or like Ricky said, with Russ is a stat monster. Yes, he still feels the need that he has to do everything, which is how you know that this isn't a team. When he is out there with a guy with the shooting ability of Paul George, who can knock down outside shots and be one of the best, honestly, one of the best 3-and-D players in the NBA, best two-way players on the wing, and he still feels dependent on, I need to win this game. When you have Carmelo Anthony, who's supposed to be the veteran leader out there, who's been there, done that, just needs to win in the playoffs, and this is a guy who is just showing up like a bum and just uninterested, lazy, and not giving it like 100% effort. That's inexcusable in the playoffs. So yeah, I think culture is the biggest thing. Steven Adams is freaking fantastic. Yeah, he's still a kid. That's the thing you got to remember. He's still not even prime Steven Adams. I mean, the stash is prime, but like the rest of him, he's still growing. So if you have, like you said, you have elite pieces there to build around, I don't think it's rebuild time. I think it's time to go through and retool this team. I agree. I think the Carmelo Anthony is not something that you can move. So you need to learn how to motivate him. You need to learn how to get him to play into the system and actually, like, I'm cool with him being a starter again. I honestly think that he has the shot. It is still silky smooth. He can still roll through the low post. He can still do backdoor cuts. Like, there's not an offensive thing that I'm not happy with. It's the effort level, and that can be changed. Coming back to the coach.
But can it be changed by just the coach? It still
100%.
has to be. I think it still has to be dependent on the player, and I still think Carmelo Anthony is absolutely delusional. I think that's why he's a bigger problem than Billy Donovan. And also, coming out is that Presti said that Billy Donovan's going to stay as head coach.
He said he's safe.
So,
but
Billy
is this
Donovan's
like
not
you're
going to move.
safe, or is this like 10 games into the next season you get fired on the Suns?
I think he's safe because of the whole
3 games.
Well,
3 games.
because of the whole thing that they said to Russ before he signed the
I
contract.
don't care what they say to people. I mean, it doesn't matter.
But why would you even bring that up then to a guy signing a huge contract if it didn't matter?
Because stability matters to players. They'd like to feel like it's stable. It doesn't mean it has to be true.
With Russell Westbrook, I think this matters more than stability.
That mattered, but I disagree. But I think at the end of the day, like, you can say whatever you want. Words are just words. If he's not the right fit for the team, and you're the owner, and you're the GM, and you're moving forward and being like, is this where we can win? Honestly, look at your team. You see a lack of motivation in your players, in your star players, who you've traded your future away for. It makes you concerned that your coach isn't coaching. He's not the right guy. He's not the motivator. He might be a good coach, but he's not the right fit. And I think that's what we run into a lot. We call these coaches bums, and we say they've got no right to coach these teams. And at the same time, I go, you know what? He'd probably be a really good coach with this set of players. And I just don't think his fit is meant. He's not meant to coach 3 superstars. It's not LeBron, David Blatt bad. Yeah, but it's similar.
Who do you think has that mindset of being able to take over that Oklahoma City team though? Would it be a guy
Stan
like
Van Gundy?
Would it be?
I don't
be a guy
think
like
there's
Bud?
a coach out there.
So you think that basically boils down to Russell Westbrook's uncoachable?
Well, I'm not going all the way with that, but it's pretty damn close. Like, to me, I feel
Really?
like
you've seen parts where Russell Westbrook. Where Russell Westbrook has shown at times where he's fine buying into a system.
Yeah.
It's just when the coach is weak and not showing that authority of being strong.
I'm on the side of it where I feel like you guys are you guys are picking the wrong thing here. Where Melo might be a problem, but after one more year, he's off the books. You never have to worry about him again. Then you got the Paul George thing. He'll be off the books and he's not coming back, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
I think that it's. Nobody's going to want to come to OKC. You've already proven that this big three doesn't work and won't work. It'll get you to the playoffs, but it won't win you a championship, barely. And you can't even beat Don Mitch. And like that to me was the biggest thing in this whole season that blew my mind was, it's a microcosm, but you got Ricky Rubio goes off and he blows up. And you've got Russell Westbrook after a game saying, I'm going to shut that shit down. And you've got a rookie on the other side, I ain't touching it. And being like, the way they interacted, I was like, if I would have came in and showed someone who's never known basketball, and I said, pick out the one who you think is the veteran and who's the rookie, I bet you the guy would have said, or the girl would have said, Russ is the rookie and Don Mitch is the veteran. Like, when a rookie is being more veteran-like than you, that's a problem. And I think that's where Russ's problem is, where, he's a phenomenal player, but is his attitude right for this Thunder team, and will he be able to win with that attitude in OKC? No. So if I'm Sam Presti, try to get the most that I can out of Russ now before it's too late.
Look at the coaches on those teams.
Oh,
I'm not saying that Donovan Mitchell isn't
they're not
super mature.
Brad Stevens like head coaches.
No, I disagree there. Quinn Snyder is close to a top 5
I'm talking
coach.
about Scotty Brooks and Billy Donovan.
I'm talking Donovan Mitchell's coaches compared to Russell Westbrook's coach. Quinn Snyder, we have talked about his mentality being that of a serial killer. Quinn Snyder looks like Patrick Bates, just like budget from what's that movie? Not American Psycho.
I get what you're saying.
American Psycho.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
He has that mentality of he's not going to take shit from anybody.
So
where
intense.
Billy Donovan looks lost out there. Like he looks like, we're at a basketball game. Nice. We're coaching. Oh, Jesus.
I feel like the Thunder are at a spot where right now, either this year or next year, they have to decide: do we ride with Russell Westbrook? Probably never win a title with him because that's how I feel. That's not what will really happen, but that's how I feel. Or do we try to get the most out of him now and just go for a rebound?
I think Russell Westbrook will be similar to what Kobe was to LA. It didn't matter that he was old and aging. They signed Kobe because that was Kobe. Because I'm not saying you're so boiled down by titles. I'm just talking strictly about the last contract that Kobe signed.
Yeah.
That handicapped Los Angeles, but it didn't matter because of what Kobe meant to LA and what he did for the Lakers. I think Russell Westbrook is similar to what Kobe was in OKC because of what he's done for that OKC team. Kevin Durant leaves, Russell Westbrook's loyal. He is the face of Oklahoma City. He will be the first jersey, most likely, retired by Oklahoma City for what he's done, staying loyal to Oklahoma City, winning games, and being consistently a part of a good team for the latter half of the past 8-9 years, being the first guy to average a triple-double since Oscar.
For 2 years.
Being an MVP. For 2 years as well. Being an MVP. Russ means so much to OKC, and I think that's the reason why you can't go away from him. However, let's get into the fun part. You guys come up with any trades for Russell Westbrook?
I did. And the one thing before I mention this trade, because it's kind of off the wall, that I do want to mention about what you just said, I do like the comparison because it is very much the same. The thing is where the titles do come into it because they do. It's easier for a team like the Lakers to do that because the pedigree that Kobe had overall. Not only was he the guy that had all the stats and stuff, but he had the titles to back it up. Russell Westbrook doesn't have that.
I know that.
Well, yeah.
The other thing is Kobe was out of his prime at that point. You have Russ in his prime.
Thank you.
So that makes a whole different situation where his value to the team is higher.
But also, even when Russ is out of his prime,
Yeah,
if
I
he's
can
still
still
putting
see
up
him,
these
yeah.
numbers, I still see Oklahoma City committing to him because of what he's done
I
over
see
the past
exactly
years.
where you're going with
That's just
that.
what I'm saying. I'm not saying,
Yeah.
because Kobe and Russ have the same background. No,
Yeah.
I'm saying it's
Oh,
strictly
I
what
know.
they mean to
But they
the
also
cities.
had, they had similar dips. I don't want to say they're exactly the same because I know that's not where you're going, but I'm still going to drive the point anyway with it, is they both had dips. They went from young in their career, competing for championships, not successful on Russ' end, but still competing for championships.
And some
He had
say
that dip.
Kobe got carried by Shaq.
Yeah, but then he had the dip in his career where, statistically he excelled. He became a better player, but he wasn't able to succeed until Paul Gasol was added, until they added Ron Artest, until they built the rest of that team around him. He, Derek Fisher, Lamar Odom, that next generation of Lakers to compete for championships. And I think that's what we're seeing right now with Russ is they're trying to find the right guys to pair around him to compete again. I don't think they've quite hit it across the board, but I think Steven Adams is the right guy there because what he and Russ can do is just amazing between the two of them. I don't know. Paul George would be amazing if you could get him locked in again. I guarantee you Carmelo's not long term, but I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing them try to roll through the available players and see who you can staple onto this team to make them better.
Maturity is the word. That's the word of the day. Because go back to a quote that you said about LeBron.
Yep.
He was just playing basketball in Cleveland.
Yes, sir.
Then in Miami, he matured in Miami. Kobe through that dip, matured and was like, hey, this is what I need to do to win a championship without Shaq. I'm not sure Russ is going to make that. I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong, but I don't think Russ can get that maturity.
Let's get into
Let's
the
hear
trade.
that trade.
Here's the
because
trade.
We're closing in on 30.
This ain't going to work, I don't think, because of I don't think this team has enough draft picks because one of them's going to Philly. But throw in whatever draft picks you want.
not
Or not
LA,
to Phoenix.
come
No, to Phoenix I meant.
Oh, okay.
So here's the trade. I was trying to figure out what teams could use Russ and wouldn't be completely handicapped. And I came up with the Bucks. Russell Westbrook for Bledsoe, Henson, and Snell, and then any picks you want to throw in there going to OKC.
I don't like that.
Well, and that's the thing. You got to give up players to get that contract. 'Cause it's going to be $35 million next year.
The whole point is Giannis can't shoot. So now you're just taking away arguably your best player in Giannis because Giannis does more work with a ball in his hand. Or Russ is going to have to do great with Giannis coming off screens. I mean, that's going to be a weird pairing. Well, I thought about it, but I don't know if that pairing will work.
Unless, and this is one I thought about, but I don't think it'll happen. One topic that you had mentioned when you were beginning of the week throwing stuff out, you had mentioned the Blazers. Do they blow it up?
Yeah.
Do the Blazers and the Thunder make now the Thunder would be getting a lot more than this, but the deal it would be revolved around a Westbrook-Dame swap. So then Westbrook then plays with C.J. McCollum, and the Thunder get draft picks, young players, and Dame from the Trailblazers.
I think the Trailblazers win that though, because again, I mean, Dame, I don't think there's that much of a separation between Dame and Russ. I think
what they do is different.
What they do
heavily,
is different, but
so I don't know how that would impact that offense because they already cram the paint pretty heavily. So Dame's spacing, I think, is critical. I don't know. I think it could work. I'd be worried about spacing. At that point.
And the one thing is like I think that Oklahoma would be getting the steal there, and Portland would be getting screwed.
Oh, okay.
Because I think again, Ross is a better player, but I don't think it's drastically too different. They do different things, but at least what they bring to the floor, they still bring that killer mentality. They still bring that number one mentality. And again, if we're talking about people who make their teammates better, I mean, Dame does a great job of that.
Yeah.
So you're bringing out the best in possibly Carmelo Anthony, if Paul George somehow stays, the best in Paul George, the best in Steven Adams, the best in Andre Robinson. I'm not saying that, again, Russ can't do that. Russ hasn't done that. I just think that Russ would be better off with more of a Dwight Howard situation where Dwight was put in the right system and players around him rather than going into playing next to, again, a guy like C.J. McCollum and going in. I don't know how that fits.
The only other situation I can see, and you're going to hate this because of who the coach is, but what if, like, and we could have this discussion another day, who the Wizards get rid of if they get rid of Beal or Wall. But if Wall's the guy, a trade around that because, Russell Westbrook, Scotty Brooks knows how to use them. I'll use air quotes for Sean. But then I feel like Westbrook teaming up with Bradley Beal and you kind of separate the alpha dogs, but then are you adding just a different alpha dog?
If anything,
Westbrook?
Wes is I hate using the word more alpha. than John Wall, but yeah, that's the thing.
He's pure alpha.
He's pure alpha. My ridiculous not
Alpha
going to
prime.
happen trade
Yeah.
is the Suns actually going Brandon Knight, T.J. Warren, Marquise Chris, and a handful of picks because they've got them.
Yeah.
So you might as well use them to add Russ. So you can pair Russ plus Dev Book plus Josh Jackson plus your.
Are you trading this year's pick?
You'd have to get Russ.
So you're
if you're doing
are
this.
you trading the 16 or your own pick?
You might have to do your own in that deal.
Oof. Would you do that?
If they don't get the one, hell yeah. If they don't get the one. If they don't
Ricky,
get the
would you-
one,
Ricky, would
because
you
they're
do
going to
that?
get sunsed.
I
Yeah.
would. If I don't get the number 1 pick, I would for Phoenix.
And then I got
because,
Russ for 5 years, right?
Especially,
6 years.
especially if Igor wants Luka that bad and they don't get Luka, hell yeah, I'll take Russell Westbrook as my consolation
I
prize.
don't know. I mean, that's going to accelerate that timeline.
Russell Westbrook, Devin Booker, Josh Jackson.
But we're
You
also
can still run with what's his face at the 4,
Bender.
Bender at the 4,
Dragon Bender,
and
the Dragon.
You still have Tyson at the 5. Like that team would be fun as hell to watch.
But the one thing is again about the coaching situation, and I just wonder how Igor would work with a guy like Russell Westbrook. I think you're possibly setting up Igor Kokoshkov for
that Coco guy.
Just
for
Igor,
some-
he's cuckoo for Cocoa
for
Puffs.
for a rough start. In the
entirely
first one.
possible. I mean,
So,
it sets
I don't
the
know.
expectations out of the ceiling because it's the roof. But at the same time, you get a chance at locking. You get a pre-locked down Russell Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
You have him under contract. There's no chance he can escape Phoenix. I mean, it's
true.
No offense, Phoenix, but like you're not exactly pulling in the free agents. I know it hasn't been your plan, but still. Point being, T.J. Warren, good, not great player. Marquise Chris, young, tons of potential, great for the Suns. Brandon Knight could be worth something, could not. I mean, he's still young enough. So I think OKC gets something out of it, plus a top pick in this draft, plus probably a pick next year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm just saying, you know.
Yeah, possibly one more if you're done.
Yeah, I'm good.
It didn't work. But here's what I'm trying to base it around.
Jesus.
Who's got 2 picks in the first round?
Lots of teams.
The Clippers.
Okay.
What if the Clippers trade both their picks, Danilo, Tobias, someone else, and picks for Russell Westbrook?
No,
And they add Westbrook to that Clipper team.
no.
Don't think the Clipper because the Clipper
That's
you're getting rid of the
anti-Jerry
Clipper
West.
team.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting rid of the outside of Lou Will. You're getting rid of the best Clipper. The part about the Clippers.
You still have Lou Will, you have Pat Bev, and you got
Bev.
Milos.
I don't think
Still
people should be
got
looking at
DeAndre
the
Jordan.
Clippers as trade
Maybe.
bait. Again, they have.
I'm with you.
I'm not saying trade bait, but a trade to push them over the mark.
I don't think they. But that doesn't
giving
put
up
them
both
over
of
the
their
mark.
wings?
The whole thing
They have
about
no wings.
So many wings.
you
They got no wings.
You're getting rid of players that Russ would play with. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
Russ with Toby would be great. I think Russ with Lou Will would be very interesting.
Unless you do
I don't know.
Unless you do, hey, DeAndre Jordan wants out. Hey, we'll trade.
Sign and trade?
No, opt in and we'll trade you. Opt into your contract because DeAndre Jordan's got the opt in, and then DeAndre Russell Westbrook. But,
I don't know.
But really, with Steven Adams, the Thunder wouldn't do that.
Hell no.
I got 2. Here are the 2 that I have. I'm not sending him to the Western Conference. Sorry, not happening. And I'm
fair.
looking for strong coaches. I'm looking at guys that have come from the pop tree or have proven that they can coach stars. And I'm also looking at teams that need to move some players and also need some help. So I'm looking at places that would work with Russell Westbrook. The first one, we talked about the Kobe versus Russ comparison. Who just brought in Mitch Kupchak to be the GM, the Charlotte Hornets.
And looking to get rid of their point guard.
We're talking about not only looking at your point guards, but they can also unload a bad contract. Nick Batum, Kemba Walker for Russell Westbrook,
didn't even
and Pat
think about
Patterson, and also including
That is
the 10th overall pick. Because James Borrego, who they just hired, comes from that pop tree, has been working with the San Antonio Spurs, has hopefully the right mentality to work with them. And hey, who's your owner? Michael Jordan.
That's
could
cool.
hopefully knock some sense into Russell
He
Westbrook.
played him in 1v1, put him in his place.
Mitch Kupchak, again,
Exactly.
Mitch Kupchak has worked with the Lakers, has worked with Shaq, has worked with Kobe, has worked with Phil Jackson, has worked with the Lakers before.
Not too bad.
Could
Sean.
be a nice
too
fit
bad.
there.
That could
Also,
work.
Charlotte
I like the
unloads
cutting
the
edge
Nick
jib.
Batum contract, and they also get a point guard who can play for them in Kemba Walker. Just comes down to will you be able to re-sign him after this year? But that's why you throw on that 10th pick.
Yep.
Then you got Kemba, you got Moist Monk, you got Pat Patterson going over there. You have Marvin Williams still staying there. You have Cody Zeller there. That could be a very interesting fit. And the final one, you need a guy who can coach stars. Which team is lacking stars right now but has some interesting pieces? The Miami Heat.
Oh.
Russell Westbrook for Goran Dragic. and Tyler Johnson.
That there Dragic guy.
And Bam Adebayo, because they don't have a pick. Maybe some future picks are slapped onto that, but it's Goran, Tyler Johnson, and Bam Adebayo for Russell Westbrook. You got Spull, who's proven to coach stars before. I think that could be an interesting fit because not only do you get Pat Riley to knock some sense into Russ Westbrook, you have Eric Spoelstra who does that as well, and you have some nice pieces around him. Josh Richardson, you have Hassan Whiteside, who maybe Hassan Whiteside isn't the problem. You just need a guy who can get Hassan Whiteside to want to play. You get Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook, with his intensity, could bring that in. You still have Justice Winslow, who could possibly be a nice piece there as well. You get rid of Tyler Johnson and Goran. You also have James Johnson there. There are still some nice pieces, and you finally get a star in Miami, and not an old-aged 36-year-old Dwayne Wade.
I know you saying Igor's last name was you kind of throwing it in there that you learned it, but I feel like that last trade, you shoehorned that in there just because you wanted to say Dragic one more time.
No, they just got a point guard. That's the reason why. It just happened.
I feel like you wanted to prove those commenters wrong that you can say.
Those were the two trades I came up with. What do you think is most likely that we throw out there?
I really like the Hornets one.
I could see the Hornets one coming close, but I think none are likely.
Well, none are likely, but out of the ones we threw out there, I like the Hornets.
Give me a percentage chance that Russell Westbrook's not the Thunder.
I'm going to say 10%. There's always a chance. There's always
about negative 14.
All right, about a negative 14 there. I'll give it a 1% because I'll at least keep it in the realm of possibility. Right. But I don't think it's going to happen at all. Let us know if you think it's going to happen down in the comments below. For an idea that we didn't think is going to happen, we talked well over 36 minutes about Russell Westbrook.
Trade talk's amazing, man.
And again, it's still interesting because the Thunder still need
the Thunder?
Yeah, the Thunder need a kick in the ass.
Which
so,
some
we'll see
could say is that it's Russell Westbrook.
But anyways, those were our thoughts on the Thunder. Those were our thoughts on the Western and Eastern Conference Finals, and those were also our Wet Boys of the week. If
really
you
good podcast this week. I really liked it.
Had a fun time. If you had a fun time as well, don't forget to rate us 5 stars on iTunes. Not only the Fast Break, but the Onside Kick, the Primetime Podcast, the Rick and Johnny Podcast, and the Onside Kick. Also, if you're on YouTube, please check out The Outcast. They just interviewed Danny Parkins from 670 The Score. So if you're Bulls, Bears, White Sox, or Cubs fans, they go over that. They're also recording a same podcast the same night as we are here on Thursday. So we're excited to see what their new topics are. Also, don't forget to subscribe. We're over 11,000. Thank you guys so much. We love you. Smooches, smooches. Also, don't forget to check out the live lotto that we did in mock draft. We also have
tons of fun.
A lotto mock coming out the day after the actual lottery. We're going to be recording Wednesday of that day, so come back to either Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, or on our YouTube channel for that. Finally, check out patreon.com/podcast. We're going to have Jake on later this month. He's always on our podcast. We love that boy. He's going to be need to recover a little bit, too. He might be a
wet boy next year.
Jake might be a wet boy next year. He's also going to probably be recovered, hopefully, after the 76ers playoff loss after that. And finally, check out mostofpodcast.com if you want to rep Dave's shirt that you cannot see right now because the camera's been off. But anyways, for Dave Oster, for Ricky Widmer, I'm Sean Anderson. We'll see you next time.